Good evening and welcome to the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education regular meeting for Wednesday, February 24th, 2021. Has this meeting been properly noticed?
Yes, it has.
Would you please call the roll?
Olmsted?
Aye. Here.
Heschel?
Here.
Szilagyi? Here. Carlin?
Here.
Evans?
Here.
Garner?
Here.
Herzog?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Our next order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Cartwright.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, our board and administrative reports, starting with the board president. This has been a good 2 weeks in that there are lots of positive things happening in the school district and the state related to public education. On February 15th, CESA 6 sponsored a Spring into Success Summit. All of our teachers were eligible to participate, as well as board members and anyone connected with CESA 6. This professional development day was provided to more than 5,200 staff across 181 school districts, over 27 states and 4 countries. Lots of positive ideas were shared, very practical ideas for staff members to take back into their classrooms. So we congratulate CESA 6 on this success. Oshkosh North High School community students have been studying the civil rights movement of the 1960s in the United States and made virtual presentations on Monday and Tuesday mornings of this week. I was privileged to be able to participate as a virtual participant, learned about a number of people I'd not heard of before, and was very impressed by the student presentations. So congratulations to the Oshkosh North Communities 1 on your excellent presentations and your preparation of posters that adorn some of the walls in the North High School. This is a special week in that the Wisconsin Public Schools Network has announced that February 22nd to 26th is Public Schools Week. Public schools in the United States serve over 50.7 million students. 3.2 million public school teachers are involved in public education, over 90,000 principals, and they are serving our communities, our students, our parents in over 13,500 public schools across the United States, working in the best interests of our students and our staff to keep everyone safe and learning together. In Oshkosh, we have 20 buildings, bringing it a little closer to home, approximately 1,400 students, and over 40 administrators. So we are grateful to our food service, our clerical, custodial maintenance, nurses, counselors, media specialists, school psychologists, our IT staff, teachers, administrators, bus drivers, and crossing guards for promoting public schools and student success every day. Thank you to all of you in our public school system. And finally, I had the opportunity to attend the Wisconsin Association of School Boards board meeting on the evening of February 19th and the morning of February 20th.
It lasted that long?
We spent a lot of time talking about equity and closing the opportunity gaps, and there will be more coming once the task force in those areas has some time to digest those data that were shared. I'm also happy to announce that the annual new board member orientations will be held in April as per usual, and we know that we will be having some new members join this board by the end of April. Those meetings this year will be virtual. So anyone is welcome to attend. Any board member is welcome to attend. Actually, they're open meetings, so anyone can attend, but they will be virtual this year. So again, thank you to all of our public school staff for everything you do each and every day to make a positive difference in the lives of our students. With that, we will move on to the superintendent's good news report and her calendar.
Thank you very much, Dr. Herzog.
Sure.
Carl Traeger and Merrill Elementary Schools recently partnered with local business Fourfold Vinyl Boutique to brighten local nursing home resident spirits for Valentine's Day. Students made cards and flowers, and over 300 residents were sponsored and received the Valentine's Day surprise. Alec Hunter
became the first Oshkosh West wrestling state champion in the school's history. He claimed the 120-pound state championship to wrap up his remarkable high school career. Congratulations and job well done. Merrill Elementary staff and students recently recognized Ruth, a wonderful woman in our community that celebrated her 109th birthday. Everyone wrote a happy birthday message on a Post-it note to recognize her incredible life. Max, a senior at Oshkosh North High School, recently competed in the Journalist of the Year competition and finished as one of the 2 finalists. Max is the current chief editor and graphics editor for the Oshkosh North High School student news source, The North Star, and has been recognized for his insightful and engaging reviews. He is also a creative designer and was involved in implementing weekly video announcements on his publication's website. Communities 1 students have been studying key people and events of the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s. Each student recently investigated an unsung hero who had a huge impact on the civil rights movement. The students created visuals and presented their hero virtually to an authentic audience of teachers, peers, administrators, Kiwanans, and parents on a Google Meet. For the past few months, our high school students who receive adapted physical education services have been participating in the district's new Adapted Sports League program. The program is designed to provide equal opportunity for high school students who may not be able to participate with their peers in sports. The first ever Adapted Sports League indoor soccer game was held last week, featuring an exciting matchup of Oshkosh West and Oshkosh North High Schools. Annika, a junior at Oshkosh West High School, was selected to represent Wisconsin as a delegate to the United States Senate Youth Program. She is one of only 2 students from Wisconsin who will be participating in this year's program and will be learning alongside 103 students from around the country. As a delegate, Larson will also receive a $10,000 college scholarship. Congratulations. It's Public Schools Week, and we want to thank and celebrate everyone who plays a critical role in helping students succeed. This Public Schools Week especially, we also want to thank our families who have worked incredibly hard and made sacrifices to support their child's learning, virtually and in person. We are grateful and appreciate all that you do. On the screen, you will see just a few examples of where I've been spending my time lately. Not listed on here are, of course, the multiple phone conversations related to COVID-19. And with that, I'm going to ask for Mr. Kamer to come forward to give us an update related to COVID-19.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So as I do for all of my COVID-19 updates, I'm going to start out this week by talking a little bit about the Winnebago County Weekly Data Summary. And again, this is a summary that comes out each week, and it reviews the number of cases within the county over the past 2-week period. In addition to looking at county data, it also looks at the case count for the geographical boundary of our school district area, as well as every other school district in the county. So based on the report that covers the weeks of February 3rd through February 16th, our district boundary burden rate, or our case rate, was at 116.9. So that has continued to come down dramatically, especially over the past few weeks. And we are approaching the threshold for what is considered the high range in that burden rate. Anything 100 and over is considered high. So hopefully in the coming weeks we will drop below that high threshold and no longer be in a category where we're considered to have high rates of community spread. In addition to that, each week we calculate the case rate and burden status for Oshkosh area school district students. And we do that by grade level. So we look at middle school and high school, as well as we break up elementary into grades 3 through 5 and K through 2. So for this past week, the burden for the K through 2 group was low, and that's the third week in a row they were in the low category. For 3 through 5, they were in the moderately high category, and that's a 4-week trend of them being below the high threshold. And then for middle and high school, they were both in the high category, but high school does continue to go down. So it'll be interesting to see what those grade level burdens look like for this week. In terms of PPE for the district, just for an update, so far this year we've distributed over 34,000 masks to all of our schools, and it includes disposable and cloth masks, in both child and regular size. We have about 40,000 in stock yet that we can continue to distribute when the need arises in any one of our schools. We distributed 9,685 trifold barriers for our schools to use in situations where maybe students are sitting extremely close to one another, or I know they are used in each of our lunchrooms to serve as a barrier between students when they have their masks off and they're eating. In addition to that, we have PPE available for our health offices and for staff members who require the PPE because of the nature of their role. And that includes medical grade masks, gloves, face shields, goggles, thermometers, gowns, disinfecting wipes. We have PPE disposal bins, and again, we tend to distribute those to all of our health offices and restock them when the need arises. There's been a lot of news on the vaccination front. As most of you know, last week the Department of Health Services came out and they indicated that March 1st was now the solid deadline for when educators would be eligible to start receiving the vaccine. So as a district, as you know, we've been working with Hometown Pharmacy as our vaccinating partner, and we're fortunate that they jumped on this right away and put in a request. They requested 1,000 doses, which would have taken care of all of our staff. And unfortunately, we only received a small fraction of that for this next week. So we are going to start vaccinating staff based on a priority list that we created. That was created with building administrators as well as our nursing staff. So we will be able to start, thankfully, this week, but DHS revamped their process, and that's something we found out about today. So the way this is going to work is the health departments for each county surveyed all school districts, and those school districts not only have to indicate the number of staff members who are interested in receiving the vaccine, but they also have to inform the health department of who their vaccinating partner is going to be, if they have one. So we responded to the Winnebago County Health Department survey, and that's going to go to the Department of Health Services, and they are then going to make a master schedule of all school districts across the state. And based on that master schedule, that's going to determine when your district is going to receive the doses necessary to vaccinate all of your staff members. So this schedule, from what I understand, is going to begin the week of March 15th, and then the subsequent weeks we could be scheduled anywhere in there. I did indicate we're ready to go as soon as possible, so it's my hope that we will be scheduled right away that first week of March 15th. But we have to wait until next Friday, March 5th, to really know where we are going to be in that schedule and timeline.
And are they going to send them out equally? Like, if, depending upon where you are, we're going to get them, the whole state will get, each partner will get that vaccination. It's not going to, or will you find that all out on the 5th?
So based on my understanding, whichever week a district is scheduled, they're going to receive the full allocation to vaccinate their entire staff.
Okay, okay.
So it wouldn't be, a few here, a few there. It would be, okay, this is the week that the Oshkosh area school district is going to go. They'd send that full supply to our vaccinating partner, and then they would provide the vaccinations.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And if I may, please. And also, it is our intention, if we're able to do, this comes to fruition, that we're able to do it all within 1 week, that what we will more than likely do, or what we will attempt to do, is to have the distribution occur on a Friday, and then
The
transition.
vaccines will occur on a Friday?
Mhm.
Getting them? Okay.
Getting them on a Friday.
Okay.
And then at that point in time, transitioning the district for that Friday into virtual, so that our teachers and staff and
All of
everybody
them
can go get their vaccine. But it would be asynchronous learning, and it'd be for that one day.
And would that happen again for their second dose?
Yes, depending on the timeline.
And is there enough staff with who we're partnering with to get all of our employees done in one day?
Yeah, Hometown Pharmacy has been amazing, and they've
Okay.
assured me that they have an ample supply of vaccinators
Awesome.
to
Okay.
get us through that. And we do have a plan in place for all the logistics as well, in terms of the sites we would do that at, the additional support staff we would need to direct traffic, to monitor the waiting area after staff receive their vaccination. So that whole plan is ready to go. We just need to know what the timeline is going to be for our
I
district.
literally want to do a happy dance right now. Thank you.
That is great news, and it should be a good thing for all of our staff moving forward, and our students as well.
Yeah, and we are so appreciative that staff have been patient, and we ask them to be patient a little bit longer. It is coming, and we will do everything we can to get it to them as soon as possible.
Excellent.
Thank you for your efforts and Dr. Cartwright's to help make this happen.
Do you have more? Because I have more questions.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to give a reminder that COVID testing is available at UW Oshkosh. They continue to provide the antigen tests for anybody who's interested. And then we also have our COVID-19 dashboard that's still active on our website. And people can go to that dashboard at any time to see the number of active cases we have in any one of our buildings for both students and staff. And also active quarantines.
Yep, that's
There are
my
also
question.
cumulative totals. So this was last updated this past Monday. And at that time, we had 8 active positive cases in our district, 6 of them students, 2 of them staff. And that was at 5 different schools. And then in terms of cumulative totals since the start of the year, we've had 579 positive cases in our district. Again, that's staff and students. And then 5,516 quarantines.
Yep. That was what my question was about, Matt. Did we see a big, I don't see it, and I was watching. Yeah, we didn't see a big jump at all in quarantines or anything going back full-time. We've only been back, Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? So 5 days, and I don't know that that's a real big time frame for us to see any numbers jump, but I didn't see any significant things in any of the schools.
It's
Did
been
we
in
hear of
pockets.
any? Did we have any?
It's been in pockets. I mean,
Okay.
it has been all along.
Yeah.
But, when we started back in hybrid, it was a little bit more noticeable.
Okay.
And now that we're back 5 days a week, there have been some. I wouldn't say it's anything that is unexpected.
Okay.
Or widespread. But every now and then when we do have a case that pops up or close contact in our schools, it has led to more students being quarantined.
Excellent, okay. Good news, thank you.
I think, Mr. Peschel, I saw your hand
Oh,
first, and
sure.
then Mrs. Szilagyi.
Thank you. So just coming back to vaccines a little bit. So teachers are being encouraged and are being informed as to where they can get vaccines prior to the rollout for the district, correct?
Yeah, so in our communication today, we did indicate that there are pharmacies or other healthcare providers in the area that are providing vaccines. So if staff have an opportunity to sign up and are able to get in, they can certainly do so. We just ask that they inform us if they do go that route, so we can take them off of our list for planning purposes.
Okay. Some teachers, most teachers are happy to be back doing what they do. But, informing them and letting them know that they can get the vaccine, could possibly get the vaccine earlier than what the district can provide is, something that may be a peace of mind for some of those teachers. So,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Kimmer? I'm sorry, Mrs. Szilagyi.
So I wondered, kind of what Ms. Almstead was saying about quarantines. When we have a quarantine case, can we have the contract tracers document whether that was a close contact at school or a close contact from the community, so that we know where our students are coming in contact with COVID?
We can, and they typically do on the line list.
Okay.
With notes, I mean, we don't tabulate, we don't go through and track that. But I mean, if that's something you're interested in, we can make
If
more of an
you're-
effort to do that.
If you remember, it's been like a month now that I keep trying to figure out how we can collect this data in a way that will help our staff and our students see that our schools are safe. Because we do have cases at schools, and we do have quarantines at schools, but my personal belief is that it's from the community and not from our schools. So I think this is like the third time I brought this up, because I'm trying to process in my head how we can collect data to really show that the spread is happening in our community instead of our schools. So I just wondered if that was one way we could do that. But it sounds, you're saying basically they already do that, they just don't.
When we are informed, we tend to take notes on how that occurs on the line list. So let me go back and take a closer look at that and think about it a little bit more to see how consistently we're documenting it.
Okay.
I don't want to promise anything when
Yeah.
we go back, and it'd be harder than I initially thought.
And in the past, I didn't push it very hard because I knew our contract tracers were often our nurses and our secretaries. But I know we've now hired some people who are dedicated just as contract tracers, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes, so that's where I feel more comfortable now asking for specific data points. I didn't want to overburden people who had, other duties besides just contract tracing. So, all right, thank you.
Sure.
Just a clarification, I believe teachers are coming under the category of 1B, and the first time they'd be eligible for a shot would be March 1st,
Correct.
Yes and no. I mean, there are teachers now in our community that have gotten the vaccine
Right.
outside of 1A. They can do that by calling their pharmacy. They can do that by calling their physician, and their physician can authorize the vaccine as well. So
Why do we have categories if you can just?
it's about, the categories are about the majority of the groups being where it's distributed to. An individual can through their physician request a vaccine, and if their doctor authorizes it, they can distribute it to them.
If they have it.
If
know
they
where to
have
get
it, yep.
Okay.
So,
Well, and different providers have been more lenient in terms of identifying what is 1A and 1B than others. So we prior to this week, I mean, we have had some teachers, receive a vaccination at pharmacies in the area, and it really depends on the actual organization and how they go about doing it.
And we have had some of our staff who were vaccinated. I believe at the meeting on January 27th, it was announced that school psychologists and school counselors were eligible to go out, for example, to Sunnyview and sign up. And prior to that, there were other staff members. Could you define, one of you, who
Sure.
that group involved?
Yeah, so counselors, social workers, school nurses were all considered mental health professionals under 1A. So they were vaccinated, as well as our nurses, health assistants, and we even had some select special education staff who within their role provide care for students who have medical conditions that we're able to get in the 1A group.
Very good. Other questions or comments for Mr. Kemmer? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And do we have any board committee reports tonight?
I have
Mrs.
Facilities and
Gardner.
Finance. We met on February 18th, and we had Dave Mako come and review. He gave us our audit. Exciting conversation on our audit. Overall, we had a positive audit due to our high standards of financial management. Our net position decreased $1.5 million from the prior year. Several factors contributed to that, which were the general fund increase. We poured more money into our general fund, which helps on a lot of different fronts. $3 million of its long-term debt using property tax revenues, and the district sold a school at a loss of $1.6 million. Debt reconciliation and payroll were two areas where we have material weaknesses, and these weaknesses were driven by COVID. No surprise there. The general fund has been relatively stable and hasn't fluctuated over the years, and it has consistently gone up, and this shows that we do manage our resources well in a fiduciary manner. 57% of our total expenditures are spent on instructional costs. Then we talked about the idea of having like staffing comparisons within the district. And the idea is starting to look at what are the results that we actually want and making sure that we are aligned with our staffing and with our personnel. And when we compare ourselves to other similar districts, what we're finding is that we're overstaffed. And so it's one way of opening up that conversation within the district to see, are we getting the results? Can we justify being overstaffed? And what are the results that we actually want that we're not getting? And how are we going to adjust? So Mr. Nehans is working on that. That's one of the reasons that it seems to appear as though our wages are below average. It's because we have more staff. That was pretty much the end of the meeting, so it was a quick 5-second. Budget projections are going to get moved to the next meeting in March, and then we had a quick referendum update. Mr. Fox is wrapping up summer designs, and he has projects that he'll be putting out to bid. And this Friday, is it this Friday? It was it was the 19th. It was last Friday.
Thursday.
Well, it says Friday.
Friday of last week.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Several staff went to Evansville, Kewaskum, and Muskego to see collaborative spaces and get ideas for our new construction.
That's exciting.
It's pretty exciting. Future agenda items are budget projections that we postponed, COVID CARES Act. We're going to talk about where is that money going and what does that look like, rec department update, and the Riff Road update. We have a meeting set up for March 18th. All of our meetings are at 8:30.
Thank you, Mrs. Garner.
Yep.
And anyone else with a committee report tonight? All right, very good. Moving on then, our next agenda item would be a
Yeah,
work.
I
I think
noticed
we're out of
that.
order.
We're out of order.
We're out of order there.
Can I make a motion to
Motion?
move?
Absolutely.
All right, I make a motion to move the workshop after the agenda-related public forum.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Carlin.
Aye.
Evans.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Olmsted.
Aye.
Peschel.
Aye.
Szilagyi.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, non-agenda related public forum, I don't have those lists right now, but I would like to.
Someone's grabbing them. Someone's.
Great, but that's all right, that will allow me to make some comments.
3 of us, Joe.
Very good. We have a very responsive group. Thank you very much. All right. I've received quite a bit of feedback over the last month regarding our open forums. And so I want to share some specifics from Board Policy 0167.3, public comment at board meetings. We certainly do want to hear from the public. However, we do not allow personal or abusive comments or language in keeping with our policy. We are very welcoming of productive, polite, and civil comments. The public forum is not a place for raising specific personnel matters because there are different rights involved. So there are a couple of excerpts I would like to share with you from 0.167.3. First of all, we ask our attendees to sign in before this part of the meeting begins, which people have done. Moving forward under the policy, I would ask that you follow this part of the policy, which is participants must be recognized by the presiding officer. That means I call your name before you come to the table. And you will be requested to preface your remarks by announcing your name, address, and your group affiliation if there is any. We currently allow statements to be limited to 3 minutes. A participant may not speak more than once on the same topic, and the participants are to direct their comments to the board, not to staff or other participants. The presiding officer may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. And a person could be asked to leave the meeting if that person does not exhibit reasonable decorum. So the regular guidelines that we read, I will share at this time. Please clearly state your name and address. If you are acting as a spokesperson for a particular group of people, please state the group that you represent. You are asked to limit your comments to the time allotted, which currently is 3 minutes. Please use public comments rather than question and answer dialogue, and state clearly and concisely the matters of concern. Please remember that the use of specific names or titles of district personnel may lead to legal liability. In such instances, please pursue the district's formal complaint process by contacting the superintendent's office at 424-0160 to direct you to the appropriate administrator. So with that, our first person to address the board tonight is Sarah Noe.
Sarah Noe, 1917 Timberline Drive. Believe it or not, I'm going to start this out positively. I want to thank the board for voting to go back to in-person 5 days a week. In 1 week's time, there's already noticeable difference in my children's attitudes. They get up at 6 in the morning, and I don't have to pull them out of bed. It's a welcome change. I know I speak on behalf of many families and students who are appreciative of the return to in-person. So I really sincerely want to thank you guys for doing that, because it's made a huge difference in less than a week. So now, while 5 days a week was our initial goal, the community is not going away. Our request for in-person learning, we uncovered issues that we would like to be addressed. If you're going to, we're going to keep pushing until leadership steps up and does what's right. If you make half the effort that you've put forth in trying to cover up the issues instead of addressing them, into treating our educators with respect, encouraging collaborative efforts, and providing them with appropriate salaries, you wouldn't have lost the number of educators you have lost over the last couple of years. You seem to have no issues with exorbitant executive administrative salaries or adding new positions, but why are you not paying our teachers better? They are directly responsible for educating our children. We ask that district leadership not only pay lip service to the civility project, but also follows them themselves. That includes repairing damaged relationships and accept responsibility and share disagreements publicly. And yet you try to hide behind the lawyers, the open records requests, and you do not provide information that should be available to the public freely. In the last board meeting, you tried to stifle complaints by all but eliminating anonymous complaints, which to some point I would agree with, if the school district culture was one of trust and transparency. It is not. How can you say you're for civility when your actions have said otherwise? I recently submitted an open records request asking about the compliance with our federal Title IX requirements. The issue is that on August 14th, 2020, new regulations took effect and the district was not in compliance. Since my request, you have added the required documents to the website. I can see that upload, and I can see when it was done and by whom. There's more requirements. I ask that you stop asking community members to pay money for open records requests and instead address the employees' performance issues once and for all. But instead, you're discouraging a community member from going forward with an open records request by asking for $171 to prove that you guys were not in compliance. I'm also asking that the results of the January 29th survey for the staff of the district be released. We've been waiting nearly a month.
15 to 30 seconds, please.
It's concerning to me that the due date of the survey was January 29th, when contracts needed to be decided before February 1st. I ask that when leadership accepts responsibility now, so we can all move forward and make this district as great as it could be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Herzog,
Yes, Mrs.
I'd like to make a
Olmsted.
comment, if I can. I noticed the T-shirts, and I noticed the monkeys on your T-shirts. And although I know the T-shirts are for you guys to represent yourselves, and I appreciate it, you know, you guys have got a movement going, I also want to have a very friendly reminder that we are in the middle of a mental health crisis with our children and our young adults and our teenagers all the way down into middle school, and that having an inside joke about bipolarism is a form of ableist, and it's only further increasing the stigma around mental health by having that on those shirts and joking about that. And we have those issues for our staff and our students and our community, and we as a community and as a school district do not condone that behavior at all.
I would like to add that I have received complaints about the monkey on those T-shirts. Today I received a complaint from a biracial grandparent in our district, also a college professor, finding that the monkey symbol is very insensitive. That sort of depiction of a monkey is often associated with demeaning people of color. And so I think it's important that you understand that that is problematic for some people in our community as the district seeks to improve equity for all of our students and success of all of our students. Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you, Barb.
Our next presenter is Molly Boots. Thank you.
Hi, Molly Boots, 3880 Crab Apple Lane. So I don't have a speech prepared, just some highlights that I kind of just wanted to ask, I guess, propose, request, start to a conversation to think about, and really it goes just around a plan. And I think I speak for not only myself, but hundreds of parents in the district right now who are kind of thinking, what am I going to do? It's February. What does next school year look like? And going back, I also want to say thank you for allowing the kids to go back to school, because it is marvelous to see my 12-year-old come back to life. So I do want to absolutely thank you for that. So just kind of the bullet points that I had written down, some things, again, that I think we have time now to think about as parents, as a board, as a community, as staff. What does next school year look like? I know personally, there are some schools in this area who now have on their website, we are offering a 5-day-a-week in-person learning model to encourage families to come there.
Okay.
That's important. Now, it may not be for some people, and that's where I think it's really important for when we talk about the plan to get into specifics. I'm not here to say that I want you to provide a plan that looks perfect for me and my family and my children. I think you have to be transparent in your plan to say, this is what we're going to provide, because some people, when you say we're going to have plexiglass in the middle of desks from now until the year 2027, are going to run to Oshkosh and say, yes, I want plexiglass. And then there are some that are going to run away and say, I don't want plexiglass. So here are some of the things that I thought would be super helpful as a parent to know what this plan looks like. I guess my first request is, a plan by May 1st would be wonderful. If possible, I understand that things are fluid and changing and things like that, but anyways, what does the school year look like? Is it a 5-day-a-week? Is it hybrid with hopes for a 5-day? We're not really sure. What do extracurricular activities look like? I'll give you an example. I have a daughter who is in student government. She's also in mock trial. She does all of those things from her bedroom, but yet her boyfriend can play all of his sports and go to school and participate, but she has to do mock trial from her bedroom laptop. So just, and again, it doesn't have to be one or the other, just mock trial will not ever be in person ever again. Sports will, that's all we need to know. And I'm not saying one or the other. What sports will take place and in which season?
Could you wrap up in about
I
15
will.
to 30 seconds?
You know, that,
please?
I think that's really helpful for parents to know, and so that we can plan. We do have my daughter enrolled at another school district, in another school district right now, or in a school for 8th grade next year, and they are guaranteeing us that she will play all sports. High school activities and memories, so things like, are they going to get a homecoming? Are they going to get a high school graduation? Is there going to be, you know, things like that I think are very valuable, again, that maybe parents will stay or go depending on those things. And then again, what does that school experience look like? You know, will my child be protected by plexiglass for the rest of their lives? Or is it best that we maybe find a district who allows her to speak freely between kids during lunch hour? And again, it's going to vary, and I'm not asking you to do one side or the other. Just a general plan would be fantastic. So thank you, and again, I think the sooner the better.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Molly.
Our next person would be Rob Rigoni.
How we doing? Rob Rigoni, 4556 Bellhaven Lane. Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Thank you.
That's more
Exciting.
for TV.
Oh, gotta move it up a little bit.
No, it's more for TV.
Oh, I got you. Thank you. Yeah, the vaccine news is very exciting. I encourage everyone to get vaccinated as soon as possible. I've been vaccinated twice. I got both my inoculations, and the stress and anxiety has been reduced greatly. Appreciate you guys making that decision to let my kids go back to school 5 days a week. The stress and anxiety around that has decreased significantly. I just have some questions, and these aren't necessarily directed at Oshkosh. It's just in general, as a community, as a society, as a nation. Some questions I had. What if policy decisions to close schools has led to a catastrophic decline in literacy, mathematics, and science? What if policy decisions to close schools has led to an exploding mental health crisis, billions of missed meals, a rise in child abuse and neglect, parents being forced to leave the workforce, and a rise in teenage suicide? What if it is true that a child is 10 times more likely to die from suicide than from a COVID-19 infection? What if the inequalities and inequities in our schools, communities, and country are now deeper and wider because of school closures? What if it is true that for each month of school stays closed, a student loses $12,000 to $15,000 in future earnings? What if the policy decision to close schools has led to the loss of over 600 students from our Oshkosh School District? What if the loss of these students and families create a major shortfall in revenue, possibly over $6 million, and puts this district in a budgetary crisis? What if school closures has led to a rise in dropout rates, teenage pregnancies, and sexual exploitation of girls and young women? What if decisions influenced by fear always lead to bad outcomes? Now, I obviously am speaking in past tense because many of these bad outcomes have already happened, and they continue to happen. Will Durant, the famous historian, wrote in several of his books that education is the greatest and most effective tool society has to close the inequality gap and to fight poverty. History has proven this to be true time and time again. School closings have only exacerbated the problem, and there is no reasonable argument to the contrary. While I am elated to have kids back in school, there is still much more that needs to be done. We need to rebuild trust with the students, parents, and community. We need to convince all stakeholders that education is the most effective tool to conquer ignorance, poverty, and inequality. We will need leadership that will roll up their sleeves and provide inspiration, courage, and encourage collaboration and embrace some perspiration.
Could you wrap up in 15 to 30
Yep,
seconds, please?
thank you.
Thank you.
We need change leaders, visionaries, and innovators. In the developed world, the U.S. students rank 31st out of 35 countries in mathematics. In an ultra-competitive world, this won't do. The school closings have only put us further behind. We need a new course of action to get our kids and district back on the right track. We need a crisis plan. Thank you. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rigoni. Next is C. Nags.
CNAGS 1564 Villa Park. We did a survey, an informal survey, to find out why teachers and administrators are leaving our school district. 50% of those people said they chose to leave for increased pay and improved work environments. 25% said they chose to leave for collaborative efforts and decision-making. 80% chose to leave due to an issue with their administrator, specifically their principals. 80% did not feel comfortable sharing their concerns with the school's leadership. 80% did not feel they were valued by members of our district. Some of their comments were as follows. What, if anything, would you like to share with their school district community regarding your employment with us? I have to say the last couple of years really seemed to go downhill. Communication, I would say, is at the top of the list. However, morale was the lowest I've seen in years. I taught for 29 years. I was made to feel inadequate. It took the wind out of my sails, the art out of my teaching. Administration needs to let teachers be themselves and build on the good qualities they have. Another person said, I can no longer be part of a system that was too busy defending and deflecting versus critically analyzing what was broken. I decided for sure to leave as the new superintendent was being hired. It gave me the feeling that the board was not in touch with philosophy or goals of Oshkosh. I worked for the school district for 31 years. Another person said, I was told I was also replaceable. I applied at a neighboring school district a month later and was hired at a higher salary with more respect for my superiors. It was a great change. Then we also asked, what, if anything, would you encourage? Well, what would encourage you to return to our school district? Many said better pay, better opportunities for advancement, feeling like you were included, that you actually mattered. Someone else said that they were an employee here for many years and never thought about leaving until the opportunity was presented to them. They said, my salary in 2 years jumped over $25,000. The new superintendent and many central office staff members, we need individuals who truly support the idea that the true work of the district happens in those buildings and is being done by the teachers. Culture needs to change. Changes to administration, superintendents, less administration, increased salary, transparency. Transparency seemed to be a word that came up a lot on these responses, was that there was none. Matching salaries to other districts. I implore you to start doing what is right by our teachers, administrators, and other staff. We cannot continue to hemorrhage our great educators to our areas. Respect, communication, professional growth, and salary in line with neighboring districts. Now, I do want to say on a personal level that I had my two oldest who happened to be twins out of the state of Wisconsin. I grew up here, right in our own communities, and after having them, I chose to pick up and move my family 1,900 miles back to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, because I grew up here and had the best education that any kid could ever have. Drawing back on my experiences here, I had some of the best teachers teach me, and I still remember every teacher I had from kindergarten all the way till I graduated high school.
Could you wrap up in 15 to
Sure.
30 seconds, please?
In high school, I had a biology teacher by the name of Tim Berger. He taught us the 4 nitrogenous bases associated with DNA. I don't think any of you even know what the hell that means. I apologize. Excuse my French. Adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine. Can you tell me what that means? I don't know what that means, but I know who it's paired with what. Because of a silly dance him and my other biology teacher, Doug Mishy, did. To this day, 35 years old, I still remember because of that silly dance. And that's what drove me back 1,900 miles to making sure my children were going to be educated by those same educators, just as passionate. And 15 years I waited for them to be taught by Tim Berger at Oshkosh North. 15 years. They have not had the 15-year experience that I was waiting for, and I was very disappointed. But I was willing to wait 15 years, and I was hell-bent on having them be taught by Mr. Berger. So I beg you, please do not let our teachers
the good ones in our school district be hemorrhaged out like this. Because there are a lot of good teachers out there, including
you
some of the
very
ones that
much.
are
You
still
need to wrap up.
teaching. And we are completely taking them for granted, so I please beg you, take it from them, please compensate them, please, please,
I'm
they
sorry,
do
your
matter.
time is up. Thank you.
Can I just speak on something real quick off the,
No.
off the 3
Your
minutes
time
to
is up.
address the monkey
No,
situation?
Your time is up. Thank you. Mr. Peschel.
Sure. I want to offer a thanks because I now have something from you to go home and talk to my high school freshman about, because he actually has the teacher that you just talked about. So thank you for that. It gives me something to take home and ask about. And my other question was, I just wanted, I want to thank you for providing that input in regards to current, past staff and how they felt about their experience and not working here. I am interested in how many people actually took part in that.
We are not noticed to engage
I just
in
want a
dialogue.
number.
You can make a comment, but we cannot engage in dialogue because we are not noticed for
Okay.
that, Mr. Peschel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other?
Because I have the same question.
Okay. Actually, we have one more person, I'm sorry. Kim Riff.
This was an individual that submitted. This is Ken Ripp. Address is 4671 Christine Street, Oshkosh. To whom it may concern, I would like to take the opportunity to recognize the amazing work that my daughter's first grade E-Academy teacher is doing. This year has been so unpredictable for everybody, for everyone, and my family is having a great experience. I brought up a concern to her teacher in November, and she took it upon herself to test my daughter's reading level and to work with her twice a week on individual reading. Her teacher taught me many strategies as a parent on how to help my daughter be successful in reading and to encourage her to read. We started in November at a D level reading, and now we are at a G level reading. This wouldn't be possible if we didn't have such great, dedicated teachers in this school district. As a family that attended a different district last year, we are getting an amazing experience here in Oshkosh, and I can't imagine this year without this teacher putting her everything into it. She has created such a community in her online sessions with all the kiddos. I just smile from ear to ear when I get the opportunity to be a part of the live sessions. This teacher deserves such a big pat on the back. I want to thank her from the bottom of my heart. I also want to send out a thank you to all the other teachers that are going above and beyond to help other families such as mine. Thank you for your time. Kim Riff.
Thank you, Dr. Cartwright. I would just like to clarify one of the items that came up from one of our presenters this evening, and that has to do with charging for copies of open records. That is part of our policy, and most boards are governed by policy, and we do have a policy which addresses the need to compensate staff time to pull records together, as well as to make the actual physical copies. In addition to that, because there are certain rights involved under Wisconsin law for public school employees, oftentimes records need to be shared with attorneys to make sure that we're not violating individuals' rights. So while it may seem like a ponderous process, it's intended to protect individual rights, since employment is, or a job is considered a property right in Wisconsin for public employees. So I apologize for the delays that may be experienced, but there are reasons for that in order to protect everyone involved. So thank you. Moving on then, we will go on to the workshop for this evening. Shuffle my papers here. We have one workshop this evening. It's a strategic plan overview and review of goal number 1, priority level number 5, Mr. Kemmer and company. Mrs. Conrad.
Yeah.
Ms. Conrad, I'm sorry.
No, it's Mrs. I was asked to do a little bit of assist to start us off, because you'll notice with our board workshops, we will be going through the same type of format as we are going through and updating everybody on the strategic plan 3.0. So as a reminder, These are the 5 goals within our strategic plan, and so we will review those each time that we have an update. And for this particular update, we are still focusing on goal number 1, because that is quite a big goal with improved student learning for all to ensure college career and community-ready graduates. The big part here is that as we start to look at the strategic plan, as a reminder that our strategic plan goes through the years 23-24 school year. We prioritize our work within the school district around that plan. So each of us as directors, project managers, going all the way through, we prioritize. We do make revisions and alterations, and as we shared before, we did make some revisions based on where we are with COVID. You're going to notice that in our presentations, you're going to see color coding that goes around completion percentages. And then the biggest piece here is that our focus is on observable impact, or what is termed in business as key progress indicators. So keep in mind as we go through this, and as Matt goes into Goal 1, Priority Area 5, he's going to be talking about percentages, because we look at our strategic plan through completion rates, as well as, once again, the observable impact, or what's the actual outcomes. And so when we look at our levels of observable impact, as a reminder, we look at first the overall progress and completion metrics. That's those percentages. We're going to look at high-level district measured results. You're going to see that tonight as Matt talks about that. And then level 3, the detailed district measured results by cohort. In this case, it's going to be grade level. Then we go down into level 4, level 5, level 6, which gets us all the way down into students. And as we take a look at our plan here, when we report out and we are working with the community on the strategic plan, we are really staying at levels 1, 2, and 3 when it comes to metrics. I think sometimes we like to say above the line, right? And then for parents, students, staff, we have data dashboards, and we absolutely do drill down into disaggregated or very specific data to help us inform where we are with students. And then once again, one of our goals is that we are pulling all in the same direction, and so we are using these district-wide indicators to help us then formulate classroom, student, school-wide goals, as well as keeping and informing our district pieces. So I am going to turn this over to Matt to talk about goal number 1.
All right. Thank you, Julie. So the primary focus of our workshop this evening is on Goal 1, Priority 5, which is integrate social and emotional learning in life and career skills to meet the needs of the whole child. Now, social and emotional learning is one of those buzz phrases in education that you've all probably heard before, but really what it refers to is development of knowledge and skills that lead to positive and healthy self-identity. And when we talk about the specific skills that are a part of social and emotional learning, they could include things like managing emotions, achieving goals, feeling and showing empathy and civility, establishing and maintaining supportive relationships, or making responsible and caring decisions. So all very important life skills. So some of the things that we've accomplished so far with this priority have really been more focused on the elementary level. So for instance, the first point here is a district-wide SEL approach. So one of the things that we did is we brought elementary principals together, and we talked about what's our philosophy, and how are we going to operate related to social and emotional learning. And through that process, we came to the conclusion that as a district, we really want to be grounded in conscious discipline. And for those of you that are not familiar with conscious discipline, it's really an approach that educators use to essentially support student needs. So what it does, it equips educators with the tools to respond to students, and ultimately leads to more self-reflection, more behavior management, better behavior management, I should say. And really at the end of the day, what conscious discipline focuses on is by changing adult behavior, we're better able to manage student behavior by how we respond to students. So with that, one of the things that's important to note is that social emotional learning, while it is the focus of Priority 5, is really integrated into everything that we do within the school district. So it's a big part of equity, it's a part of academics. So it's difficult to really park it in one area. So as we get further along into the strategic plan, one of the things that you'll notice is that there are different parts of the plan that also touch on social emotional learning and some of the pieces that are closely associated with that, like mental health. So if you have concerns that maybe this doesn't seem all-encompassing enough, like I said, there are parts down the line that are a bit more broad in that regard. So some of the other things that we've accomplished is we piloted the Sanford Harmony curriculum at 5 of our schools. That started last year, and it was interrupted by going virtual due to COVID, and that is something that we want to resume in the near future, and I'll talk about that a little bit more as we move along here as well. So in terms of metrics, some of the things that we're going to be using for observable impact include absenteeism rates, office discipline referrals, SABRS data, and wellness screen data. And I'll explain each of these in a little bit more detail. But overall, we want to see improvements in student attendance. We want to see a decrease in the discipline referrals or major behaviors that we have in the district. We want to see improvements in our SABRS scores, an increase in wellness screen participation rates, and also a decrease in the wellness screen positivity screen rates. So based on the data that we've collected over the past 5 years, we've established some baselines in these areas, and we've also created some targets based on that data. So first and foremost, I'm going to talk a little bit about chronic absenteeism. Now, at the surface level, it may not seem like chronic absenteeism is a great indicator of social and emotional growth, but when you consider that chronic absenteeism leads to significant gaps in achievement, not just academic achievement, but also social and emotional achievement, it starts to make a little bit more sense. And how we define chronic absenteeism here, it's really based on state and federal definitions. Now, in the past, the state of Wisconsin has defined chronic absenteeism by the students who miss at least 16% of the total number of school days in the course of the time that they're enrolled in the district. And this is the metric that is used on the state report cards. The federal government, through ESSA, defines it a little bit differently, and they use a 10% threshold. And this is something that the WISE reporting system for the state of Wisconsin recently adopted. It was actually in the 2018-19 school year. So when I flip to the next slide, that is something I want to point out in terms of what the data looks like. And again, both these rates are something that are calculated annually by each school district throughout the state. So these are our chronic absenteeism rates, and obviously you see that the 19 and 20 and 2021 school years don't have any data. It wasn't included in the WISE system. I don't know if that's something that they're going to add or if there were reporting issues due to COVID. But as you'll see later in the presentation, there are consistently issues with data from these 2 school years anyways. So I really want to focus on the 18-19 school year on down the line. But based on what you're seeing here, I mean, we have seen a rise in chronic absenteeism. And with that changing threshold in 18-19, it's hard to make the determination that the jump from 17-18 to 18-19, whether that is truly a rise in chronic absenteeism or if it's because the criteria has changed. When that threshold dropped to 10%, it essentially included more students who fit that criteria. Look at 10 versus 16%. So it's not surprising that we saw a jump there. But with that, we are still in line with the state averages going back to the 18-19 school year. And really, what we'd like to see is 7% or less. We'd like to see 0%, but our target, or what we're going to be shooting for, is that 7% threshold. Something else we use to monitor attendance is what we call the high-risk absenteeism rate. And this indicates the proportion of students at risk for being chronically absent in a school or a district. And this is a metric that's used by the WISE-Absentee Early Warning Dashboard. So that's where I pulled this from. And how they define chronic or high-risk absenteeism is defined by students who have 10 or more absences during a given school year. Moderate risk would be students who have between 6 but less than 10. absences throughout the course of the year, and low risk would be students who have fewer than 6 days absent during the course of the school year. So when we look at that data, again, it kind of mirrors the chronic absenteeism data. And again, we're right around what we consider state average. But this does have data from the 1920 school year and the 2021 school year. And you can see how skewed that is due to the fact that we were virtual for large chunks of both of those school years. So it'll be interesting once we get into next year. Hopefully we'll have a full year of in-person education to where we can really see whether or not some of these trends are going to be continuing. And then finally, the last metric related to attendance is student attendance rate. And this is probably the one most people are familiar with, but it really just looks at the proportion of actual school days that students attend versus being absent throughout the course of the year. It looks at the number of potential days that students across the district, so the cumulative total, could potentially attend, and then that percentage is calculated based on how many actually attend, if that makes sense. So looking at that data, it's relatively consistent over time. You don't see large fluctuations in our attendance rate. And again, take it for what it's worth, but 1920 and this school year, in particular, we see a jump that I think is not truly reflective of what our attendance rate is or will be. But if you look at the 18-19 state average, we're right in that range, actually a little bit above the state average for attendance rate. So and our target for that is 97% going forward. We'd like to get that up a bit more. Next, in terms of observable impact, we're looking at behavioral incidents. And in particular, we're looking at major behavior referrals. And the district defines major behavior referrals as generally those that require office assistance. So it could be in the classroom, it could be in the lunchroom, whatever it may be. It requires either sending a student to the office or requesting administrator support. Minor behaviors are those that are less severe and generally are handled by the teacher or the educator in that setting, and involves reteaching of the behavior and expectations. So in terms of major behaviors, over the course of the past 5 years, what you'll see is that we have gradually been increasing in that area up until 1920 school year. And again, that decrease is probably in large part attributed to the fact that we were virtual for part of the year. And this year, you can see that's majorly skewed because we have been virtual for a large chunk of the year. But through our SEL practices, that's definitely a metric we would like to get down significantly, targeting 6,000 or less. And to get a little bit better idea by grade level of what this looks like, you'll see here elementary trend is the blue line, middle school trend would be the red, and the high school trend would be the yellow. Prior to COVID, we saw a gradual and slight decline at the elementary level, which has traditionally been higher than our other levels. But we did see a spike at the high school level, while middle school has stayed relatively consistent. Next on the list is SABRS, and that stands for Social, Academic, and Emotional Behavior Risk Screener. SABRS is part of the FastBridge assessment system, and the district started using FastBridge initially as part of our progress monitoring tool arsenal, which is a requirement under the response to intervention model. But the FastBridge system also included SABRS, which is a nice perk because it's a really cool tool that we've been starting to use in our elementary schools. So one of the nice things about it is it's a really brief screening tool that assesses a student's risk for social, emotional, or behavioral problems. And it's a rating scale that's done by our classroom teachers, and they can do it usually within probably about a minute or so. So they're able to move through their class relatively quickly. It's done 3 times a year as a benchmark assessment, so we want to get a snapshot of where our students are in fall, winter, and spring. And it's something that we've been using as a part of our Sanford Harmony pilot that I mentioned a few slides ago. One other nice feature of this is there's something called My SABRS, which is a student rating scale that the student actually completes rather than a teacher, and that's available for grades 2 through 12. And a lot of our pilot schools have actually used My SABRS as well, and they've been able to compare compare student ratings versus teacher, which provides a nice additional piece of data. So in terms of those 5 pilot schools, last year when we first piloted this, we were able to get our fall benchmark in and our winter benchmark. And obviously we're not able to get a spring benchmark, unfortunately. And what we saw is that at most of our schools that we're piloting at, we did see some growth. 2 of our schools maintained where they were at from a data standpoint. One thing to consider with that too is by the time we got up and running at some of our schools, it was already mid to late fall. So while that fall benchmark was a baseline, we didn't have a whole lot of time to implement the curriculum the way we wanted to before we hit that winter benchmark. And even with that, out of the 66 classrooms that participated, or out of the 66 classrooms that participated, we saw positive growth or maintaining skills in 44 of those classrooms, so 66%. And unfortunately, we did see a decline in 33% of those. But again, it's difficult to say when we don't have a full data profile from the course of the year how effective it truly was for those classrooms. That's something we're looking forward to having this year. So here's just a snapshot of what I'm talking about with the fall and winter benchmark from last year. As you can see, we had some schools that made some solid growth, like Lakeside, for instance. They were one of our early adopters last year. And from fall to winter, they saw 8% growth by their students who were assessed. Merrill and Franklin, Merrill saw 5% growth, Franklin 4% respectively. And then we saw Webster and Cook stay relatively consistent from fall to winter. And last but certainly not least, the last observable impact metric we're going to be looking at is the wellness screen. And the wellness screen is a part of our Rise Up program. It's done in conjunction with Samaritan Counseling, and we've been doing it in the district for a number of years now. And really what the wellness screen does is it takes a look at students' level of social and emotional concern for themselves. It's done, or it's offered every single year. A few years ago, we switched from an active model to a passive consent model, which saw our participation rate grow. But with that, parents have the opportunity to opt their child out, and students can also decide not to participate in the screen. So it's completely optional. If we do have students who end up screening positive on the wellness screen, Samaritan will follow up with those students, and if they feel like the student is in need of some additional support, they will refer that student to an outside agency to receive that support, and they will continue to follow up with that student in that family for up to 90 days. So it's been a nice feature of our Rise Up program for identifying students who have those needs in grades 8 through 12. So one of the key pieces that we look at with the wellness screen is participation rate. And since we moved to the passive consent model, we've been hanging right around the 55, 56% participation rate. We really want to get that upwards of 70%. And the idea is, as we continue to destigmatize mental health, promote the wellness screen and mental health in general, our hope is that ultimately our participation rate will rise. Now, the wellness screen was completely virtual this year, and we didn't really know what we were going to get from a participation standpoint. And what we found is that far fewer students were participating. But there was something that was somewhat interesting with the data that we saw, because the other metric that we're looking at related to the wellness screen is the positive screen rate. And this indicates the percentage of students that answered questions in a way that caused them to be identified as positive on the screen where they were followed up with Samaritan staff. So as you can see, we were between 35 and 40% over the past 3 years, and this year we're at 28%. Now, I don't think that's reflective of the actual social, emotional, or mental health needs in our schools, but what I think happened is, as you saw the participation rate drop, I think our students who are highly engaged with online learning are probably the students who participated in the screening process. And those students tended to answer questions in a way that caused them to score or come up as positive, less so than students who are not as engaged virtually. So this is something that we will continue to track, obviously this year and going into next year. Now that we're back 5 days a week, we just moved over to the middle school, and we're starting to screen each of those schools. And that'll be interesting to see because now that we're back in person, that comparative analysis between years for our middle school anyway will be a little bit more legitimate. But in terms of our positivity rate, the expectation for most schools is that between 20 to 25% of students are going to have social and emotional needs that require intervention. Now, even though our percentages are higher, the screener purposely casts a wider net than that because not every student who screens positive is actually in need of that intervention. So that's where that follow-up really comes into play, and it's helpful in determining, how many students actually need that support and how far above that 20 to 25% range that we are. So that's why the target that we chose is 20%. Ultimately, if we can get that positive screen rate down into that 20 to 25% range, it's really what we'd be looking for there. So in terms of next steps, I mentioned conscious discipline early on. That is a key focus of our social emotional learning as a district. We do have some elementary school trainings and early learning training set up for this summer. So between August 16th and 20th, all of our elementary schools and our early learning staff are going to participate in trainings. Some of our building leaders at the early learning and elementary level are going to be participating in conscious discipline 1 training in June and July. And then we'll continue to offer conscious discipline trainings in years to follow to really build staff capacity in that area. Another next step is we really want to reestablish our Sanford Harmony pilot next year. We've really been exploring how Sanford Harmony meshes with conscious discipline, and based on what we've seen so far, they seem to complement each other really well. And having a full data profile from the course of a year as we're implementing conscious discipline is really going to be interesting to see if that's something we want to continue to use in the future and expand to the rest of our elementary schools as a social emotional learning curriculum. And then finally, we really want to establish a more defined approach for addressing social emotional learning at the secondary level. And that's something that we've already started to do through academic and career planning. That is part of our school counselor curriculum. But that's something that we really want to make more defined as we move forward. Are there any questions?
Mrs. Carlin.
I had a question about the screening.
Sure.
So we now have 50% of people go out of their way and say, we don't want this screening. And it's the parents that have to opt them out, right?
No, a student can opt themselves out.
A student can opt themselves out, okay. Well, I was just wondering if you've heard any reasons why they would not want to do the screening. That's what I don't understand.
Yeah, there are a variety of reasons. Some parents are just not interested in having their child participate.
Okay.
Some students are already in treatment and feel there's a need. Others, I've heard that in some instances that there's a peer pressure component to not participate. And that's really where the destigmatization piece is so important, where if it's something that our students can get used to and just understand, and hey, this is a part of my each and every school year, then hopefully they'd be more likely to participate. So we've been exploring a lot of things related to lack of participation, and that's something that isn't unique to our district. We were one of the first that moved to a passive consent, so I think we're kind of the first in exploring some of these reasons why, but I think other districts are starting to see some of the same things.
Cool. Thank you.
On the absenteeism, is that all absentee, or is it unexcused? Or do we even do unexcused and excused absences anymore?
Yep, we still identify students as excused or unexcused. In terms of the chronic absenteeism rate, that would just be students who miss at least 16% of school days in general. So
even if they're excused, the parent takes them out of the classroom to go on a vacation somewhere?
Correct.
That counts.
Yep. So those that are unexcused, that would be our truancy numbers.
Are there other questions or comments for Mr. Kemmer? I do have a question. I'd like to go back to slide number 20, please. I know that for many years the district was involved in the PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention System.
Positive behavior interventions and supports.
Thank you. Are we still using that program
Yes.
or not?
Yes, we are.
So how does that fit in with conscious discipline?
They actually complement each other really well. And that's one of the things that we've really been figuring out, how to help people internalize how all of this fits together, because we do have a lot of things in place in our district, like PBIS, conscious discipline, Stanford Harmony, mindfulness. So there's really a lot. And we used an analogy last year where, and I wish I had it with me because it's a visual, but it really helps people kind of have that frame of reference of how this fits together. But PBIS is really the framework or the picture frame that all of these other things fall into. And within that picture frame, there are components like conscious discipline and Stanford Harmony that have some similarities, but they also have a unique and defined purpose outside of PBIS. So if you think of PBIS as the frame that all of these other pieces kind of fit into, and together they complete the entire picture of how we address behaviors, social emotional learning, some of those things that are all kind of intertwined with one another.
What might explain these numbers? I'm really concerned that we are so much higher than the target. And my recollection is that many years ago, I don't know how many, but many years ago when the district decided to adopt PBIS, my recollection is that we were told it would diminish behavior problems, but that doesn't seem to be borne out by these data.
Right, and I agree that it is concerning that our major behaviors have continued to rise, but also keep in mind this is one piece of data. And it's not the complete picture of what behaviors look like in our district. And I think that's something that is going to become a bit more clear with some of the other priorities that we have in the strategic plan when we're looking at other behavior data. And again, I don't know how this aligns with our suspension data or some of the other pieces. I know if you go on the WISE system, they have behavior incidents, how they define it. So there are different ways to define the behavioral data that we see. But I agree there are definitely concerns with the fact that our major behaviors have been increasing. And that is something that our PBIS teams have really focused on and will continue to try to address the best that we can.
That would be my next question. What are we doing about these data? I mean, when we're 150% above target or 50% above the target, that's really concerning to me.
Yeah, so one of the nice things that we have in the district is EduClimber. And EduClimber can really focus in on specific data sets and look at when behaviors occur, where they occur, the time of day, by who. And that helps us frame the problem a bit differently, because when you look at this is overwhelming and you say, oh my God, how are we even going to try to tackle this? But if you can break it down to a more defined problem, it becomes easier to solve. So that's something that our PBIS teams do on a regular basis. As they meet up, they review the data, and they try to identify where our problem areas that we're seeing in our data, and then create specific plans around what they're seeing.
If I may.
Please.
Dr. Herzog, also some of this is, you also have to understand, some of this is going to be what is known as a lagging indicator for some of the revisions that we have already put into place. So for example, if you'll recall, a couple years ago we were able to put into every school a school counselor, because we didn't even have full-time school counselors in every one of our schools. So that is one revision. Then we also redefined what their roles are. We adopted a social emotional learning curriculum for the elementary schools that Mr. Cameron was just talking about, that we started implementing last year. The reason I say it's lagging indicators is because as we're teaching our students and getting and making these shifts, You're not going to see that a change in the behavior all of a sudden change. It may show up the following year, but not typically the year for which you're implementing that change. And so I think what you're seeing, if you'll go back one slide, what you're starting to see is where we saw 17, 18, and then 18, 19 was actually the year that we made some of those, and we started implementing some of those revisions. And then that's when you see 19, 20, it's starting to go down.
But would 1920 also be down because we went into virtual in March?
That's a possibility as well, yes.
And if I can add on top of Dr. Cartwright there, in addition to that, PBIS is a piece that it gives us when we talk about the framework, it's the framework for how we're looking at data and how we're monitoring. So also during this time, we really made adjustments to what an actual major behavior, and when we say major, it feels like it's this big thing. And a major behavior is really an office discipline referral. It's gotten to the point where an administrator needs to intervene. There needs to be other supports rather than the classroom teacher. And so also during that time, we redefined what a major versus a minor is and what those pieces are. And so we've been working through what are our data definitions. And so some of this is also better data tracking as far as what behaviors we're actually seeing. So all at the same time, we have additional supports put in, we're redefining what things are, and we're better at the data tracking. So as we're going here, this may be our baseline, but you can see where we want to go with our target. So once again, don't be alarmed when it says major. Immediately when you think major.
Well,
yeah,
so when you
that's
say
not.
major and minor, I mean, I have kids in the school system, so one will come home, and it's particularly middle school, you know, so-and-so got a major for just something really small. So does it depend upon then the teachers? You know, like you said, you needed to redefine what a major and a minor was. So that could be one teacher is giving a major for this, but this teacher's not giving a major for that. So that would really change the numbers too then?
Correct.
And that's what you guys are saying, redefining
and we're
them?
not using the terms majors and we're not necessarily using the terms majors and minors.
Oh, okay.
Office discipline referrals. But also
Okay.
that comes back to working with our staff and adult behaviors as far as being consistent
Right,
when it
okay.
comes to how are we handling and when does it come to the point where it's no longer handled by the classroom teacher and where does we need to have additional
Right.
support, so it's office discipline referral.
Okay, office discipline referral, okay, thank you.
So that's the beauty about data, is that it leads to more questions, right? And so how are we using that? So when we're in those different levels, like level 1, 2, and 3, you're seeing the real high picture view. We have conversations in working with Jean Manicki, Katie Tyson, who are PBIS coordinators on this. We actually just recently had conversations about why is the data looking this way? How do we make adjustments? Are we being consistent with our data definitions? And then what is our student data telling us about our adult actions and adjustments we need to make?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Conrad. Are there any other questions or comments? I do have another question regarding conscious discipline. I know that Shapiro STEM Charter School was an early adopter of conscious discipline and had some very good results with that. And at that time, we had at least 2 staff members at Shapiro who were trainers. I believe one retired, and I know one left the district for another location.
Yep.
Do we have any district conscious discipline trainers currently?
We have a couple people who are like master conscious discipline people. So Beth Schendel and Susan Martin have been leading the work a great deal. They've gone to several of the different trainings and have helped support. But we are using people from conscious discipline to do the training right now because we want to make sure that we are getting the very best. And Beth Schendel and Susan Martin, because of their work that they have done, they have ties to some of the national people who are willing to come in and train us. So it's been pretty spectacular.
It is.
Mhm.
Now, you mentioned the training would be available to elementary staff. What about middle and high school staff, or is that not a program designed for secondary students and staff?
It could be utilized for middle school and high school, but really, we need to set a foundation for our 4K-5, and not sure if that's the route we'll go with 612. We're looking into other opportunities, and because there's several different speakers out there who could really help ground us with a similar philosophy of conscious discipline, but it might have a more relevant pacing to 612.
Thank you very much for that clarification, or those clarifications. Mrs. Garner, did you want to add something?
I
You
did
look like
not.
you were ready to
No.
jump in there.
No, ma'am.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misinterpreted.
No.
Does anyone else have a question or comment on this particular phase?
I just want to say thank you. This was
Mhm.
a really interesting report for me to read earlier this week, and I enjoyed the presentation just now too. Thank you.
I certainly would describe it as transparent and open. We obviously have some work to do in some areas, and it's out there, and I really appreciate the graphs. As someone who's very visually oriented, I love seeing graphs as well as numbers, so this was very helpful. So thank you for your work on this. All right, moving on. The next item on our agenda is the consent resolution agenda. For the consent agenda, the board has been furnished with background material on each item or has discussed it at a previous meeting. These will be acted upon with one vote without discussion. If a board member wants to discuss any item, it will be pulled from the consent agenda and will be voted on separately. Is there anyone who wanted to pull anything from the consent agenda this evening?
Yes, number 1.
Number 1. Okay, anyone else? And I would like to pull 5B. Are there any others? Mr. Peschel.
I'm trying to recall which meeting it was. Can you give me a minute, 30 seconds?
Sure. Give me a time to shuffle my papers here. I'm looking for resolution number 1. I think that was sent today in an email, a revision. It's probably on the screen here.
It is, I'd like to pull the minutes for January 27th.
Okay.
2021.
And I believe we have revisions of those that were sent us today.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so let me have a minute to find those.
They're the same one. You guys want to pull the same one?
No, I'm
he
pulling
wanted
number
to-
1, he's pulling number 2.
Oh, I'm so sorry, you guys. Okay.
Well, if you could make a trifecta, somebody can pull number 3.
I was
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, are there any others to be pulled? All right, then the consent resolution agenda will consist of the following. Number 3, minutes of February 10th, 2021 regular board meeting. Number 4, bills payable. Number 5, personnel A, appointments, temporary appointments, resignations, and salaries. Number 6, 2021 to 2022 school calendar. Number 7, IP paging system purchase. And number 8, updates to policy 8130, public records.
So moved.
Please call the roll.
Peschel.
Aye.
Szilagyi.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
Evans.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Olmsted.
Aye.
The ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you. So then we will go back to, I don't have the language on that one, I don't believe. Be it resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District approve the minutes of the January 25th, 2021 special board meeting.
So moved.
Discussion.
Yeah, I just, this is that meeting. And just, people that do this for a living have a parliamentarian overseeing. We have a yellow sheet. So I think we have nothing to be ashamed of what appeared to be confusion. I think we did that good, but in the interest of honest notes, resolution number 1, amendment 2 should be corrected. I don't know if we need to correct that and bring it back, or we can do that now. It says amended resolution was lost, which is true, but then it has 4 ayes and 3 noes, and the voting is not correct.
It was 5 and 2. Is that what you're saying?
It's 4 and 3, but the ayes were Herzog, Peschel, and Gardner, and the noes were Olmsted, Szilagyi, Carlin, and Evans.
So you would suggest, you are saying that where it says amended resolution was lost, it should say amended resolution was approved?
No, it lost.
No, it was lost. It said there were 3 ayes and 4 noes.
Oh, I see.
Evans needs to be moved over to the no.
Oh.
All right, thank you.
Good catch.
Is there anything else there to correct?
No, that was the only thing, and I guess, I don't know if we can correct that now and vote on it, or?
I believe we can. I think the proper way would be to offer an amendment.
Correct. To amend, someone would need to make a motion to amend the minutes to reflect what Mr. Evans just reported.
I amend the minutes to read lost 3 ayes, Gardner, Herzog, Peschel, 4 noes, Evans, Carlin, Olmsted, and Szilagyi.
We need a second.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? Mr.
Yes.
Peschel?
So I just want to make sure that I'm looking at the right thing so that I know what I'm voting on here. So are we talking about amendment number 3 or?
No.
No.
Which amendment number?
It's
2.
amendment number 1, resolution 1, amendment number 2.
Okay, and state, Mr. Evans, state one more time what your,
The resolution lost. There were 3 ayes, Gardner, Herzog, Peschel, 4 noes, Evans, Carlin, Olmsted, and Szilagyi.
Yes.
And I watched the meeting again today to
Yeah,
make sure I had it.
you're right. I didn't catch that, but you're right. That is how it was.
Mhm. All right, are there any other comments or questions?
I didn't watch the meeting again. So I'm hesitant to vote in favor or against something here because I'm taking someone else's word on it at this point. And so I guess in this case, I would probably vote present to acknowledge that the vote took place, but I don't, without going back and looking at it, I can't acknowledge that I voted yes or no. Even though that's my amendment, there's a blank that leads me to go that far back on it, so.
I remember how I voted.
I remember
Yep.
that Jim and I
At
did
the-
the same.
At the very least, it lost, and you can't have 4 ayes and 3 noes and have it be
Have it
lost.
lost.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's just not clear which was the error.
But see, I would have voted yes on that because that was my amendment.
And you did.
And you did.
You did.
Okay.
Jim's saying that he
You
did
did.
not. And
Okay.
that is correct. Jim and I voted the same all 3
Mhm.
times that night.
Mhm.
And so there was one other person that voted no. Is that what we're saying?
No,
Yeah.
No.
Evans voted no. This is a typo.
Yeah, right, Evans.
It's just a typo.
Okay.
Evans should be over in the nose, that's it.
Okay.
And Jackie just confirmed that, right? I heard you back there say that.
I'd have to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I heard you
I'm
say
just saying
something.
that I'm just clarifying what Jim was saying.
You're clarifying the
Resolution
amendment.
Right now is 10
Gotcha.
ayes, yes.
It says there's 4 yeses and 3
Okay,
noes.
okay, no, we're good. I see it now. I see it now. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Any
We're
more
good.
comments, discussion, questions? Please call the roll.
Szilagyi,
Aye.
Carlin,
Aye.
Evans,
Aye.
Garner,
Aye.
Herzog,
Aye.
Olmsted,
Aye.
Peschel.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries.
All right, so then we voted on this, amending this, so now we need to vote on the revised
Minutes.
document
Yes.
with this change in it.
The newly amended
The
minutes.
original, the actual.
Right.
Correct.
No, I think you can just vote on the amendment.
No, we're
We just
voting on the
voted on the
amended minutes
amendment.
now. 'Cause we just voted on the amendment.
now we have to vote on the actual minutes.
Right, and we had a motion and we had a second.
Jim, would you agree?
Yes.
Sometimes you can just correct minutes.
Right.
Without
Sure.
any
Okay.
vote.
I've seen it that way, but I think that we've created the process of amending it, and we should probably follow it up with a
Good old fashioned.
vote on
Right
it.
across the.
All right, so can we call the roll?
Can't take enough votes, so.
Please call the roll on the amended minutes.
Okay. Carlin.
Aye.
Evans.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Olmsted.
Aye.
Peschel.
Aye.
Szilagyi.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you. The next one is, be it resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District approve the minutes of the January 27th, 2020 regular board meeting as filed with the Secretary to the Board of Education.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion?
Yes, there is.
Mr. Peschel?
I neglected to pull, shoot, hold on. Let me find it again. That was the 27th, right? Yep,
Yes?
Page 45.
thank you. When offered the opportunity to pull something from the consent resolution agenda, I failed to pull something that should have been pulled. So I'm not asking us to undo that action. I just, I would like to have the minutes reflect that, hold on, I'm trying to find that number 15, that number 15, that it reflects that I, as a board member, should have abstained from that vote because my wife is a teacher in the district. So,
Okay, so you're just asking that that be added?
correct. I mean, we can't, it's too laborious to change that
Oh,
at
yeah.
this point. But
Because
I'd
you
like
did vote.
I'd like the minutes to reflect that I've acknowledged that I made a mistake. So,
And how would we do that?
So she's recording,
correct.
so she's made a record that of what he has said, but we haven't amended anything. All we're gonna do is vote on it like we normally would.
So essentially what we're gonna do is that this clarification is gonna end up in this meeting's note, this
Okay.
meeting's,
Okay, I
this
just
meeting's
wanted to
minutes.
clarify that we were all on board with that. I wasn't
Correct.
suggesting anything, and I wasn't questioning your statement. I just wanted to make
Yep.
sure that we all
This is-
understood where this was going to be
This is just the
noted.
opportunity for me to be able to
Absolutely.
Publicly say
discuss
it, and then
that.
it will be on the new minutes.
All right,
So,
all right, so that's just like regular discussion about any
Correct.
other item on which we vote. All right, is there any other discussion on this agenda item? All right, then please call the roll.
Carlin.
Aye.
Evans.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Olmsted.
Aye.
Peschel.
aye.
Szilagyi.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you very much. Then moving on to 5B, be it resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education approve the retirements as filed with the Secretary to the Board of Education.
So moved.
Second.
I had asked that this be pulled. Once again, we have two people who are choosing to move on to a new stage of life called retirement, and we want to wish them well for the many years of service to the students, parents, and our community. John Neustifter is retiring as an assistant cook, currently at Oshkosh West High School, and he has served the district since 1997. Serta Vang is a full-time ESL teacher assistant, currently serving at Perry Tippler Middle School, and he is he has also been with the district since 1997. I've had the good fortune of working with Serta Vang during my years of full-time employment in the district. He came to this country for a better life for his wife and his family, and has worked tirelessly, I know, in that ESL assistant position, as I believe John Neusifter has also worked tirelessly as an assistant cook. So I want to thank both of these gentlemen, Sir Ta and John, for their tireless efforts on behalf of our students, their parents, families, and our community. Anyone else want to add to this? Please call the roll.
Evans?
Aye.
Garner?
Aye.
Herzog?
Aye.
Olmsted?
Aye.
Peschel?
Aye.
Szilagyi?
Aye.
Carlin?
Aye.
The ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you. So we've just gone through individually considered resolutions. Are there requests for future agenda items? I think at some point we should be looking at a plan, as was suggested earlier this evening, for the 2021-2022 school year, in terms of what model, using the current language, we hope to be starting in the fall, and what the impacts would be on extracurriculars. That's important for our families, our students, to know moving forward. So I'd like to see that added. Is there any other request for future agenda items? Any announcements tonight? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session for two purposes. Number one, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session under Wisconsin Statute 19.85, paren 1, paren E, A, purchase of two properties, and number two, considering the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises authority under Wisconsin Statute 19.85, paren 1, paren C, A, administrative contract matter.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Garner?
Aye.
Herzog?
Aye.
Olmsted?
Aye.
Peschel?
Aye.
Szilagyi?
Aye.
Carlin?
Aye.
Evans?
Aye.
The meeting's adjourned to executive session.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening, everyone.